In early February, the Australian government was put on alert. A small fleet of Chinese naval ships had just entered the Coral Sea. The three ships, a cruiser, frigate, and replenishment tanker, shocked the Australian government, primarily because they came unannounced. The flotilla of ships made their way down to the Tasman Sea, just 150 nautical miles east of Sydney, ready to conduct their operations. Tensions would reach a peak on February 21st when a commercial plane flying over the Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand was almost caught in the middle of a live Chinese firing drill. It then rapidly scrambled to avoid the warships. The pilot then notified Australia's Civil Aviation Service. Nearly 50 planes would have to end up changing their course. But this wasn't the end. The surprises just kept coming. These ships would then go in and out of the Australian Exclusive Economic Zone. The Australians could even sail around their own country. The Chinese showed up in their own backyard in an astonishing projection of power. The circumnavigation of Australia lasted around a month. The Chinese would eventually leave, but the message they sent stuck with the Australians. For a long time now, Australians have been quite lucky. A prosperous, safe, liberal democracy teeming with opportunity at the edge of the world. What helped facilitate this? The two giants of our time. Australians have simultaneously enjoyed the protection of America and the prosperous economic relationship with China. For decades, all was well, until now. And the pressure is not only coming from China, as you might expect, but from the United States of America, as Donald Trump is keen on dismantling the liberal international order and pursuing a transactional relationship with countries. The securities the Australians once cherished so dearly is coming to an end, leaving them to fend for themselves in a much lonelier, harsher world. But this situation is not unfamiliar to Australians. The fear of abandonment is one which they have felt before. Australia was once part of the British Empire. Under the auspices of Great Britain, the Australians had a guardian over them to worry about affairs of state. Gradually though, this dissipated. When the imperial mother country left Asia, the shock which this large country felt was enormous. Britain was no longer the world empire, and it became a mid-sized European power. It was now the United States of America who was the leader of the free world. Australia thus quickly sought a security alliance with the Americans. The Five Eyes, an intelligence sharing alliance between the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, was established during the midst of World War II. The Australians bent to the United States' new order, and thus the fight against communism after the war. To show how much they were willing to pay the premium on this new security alliance, the Australians sent troops to fight alongside Americans during the Vietnam War. More recently, Quad, a grouping of Australia, India, Japan, and the US, was established in 2007 in response to increased Chinese power. AUKUS is a trilateral security partnership between the US, UK, and Australia, created to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific that is secure and stable. All of these alliances and partnerships give Australia immense relief and security in an otherwise quite hostile region, increasingly dominated by China. It seemed that Australia had found a replacement for Great Britain, a country which on more democratic grounds could continue to grow and thrive. While Australia was deepening its security ties with the US, it also took advantage of the economic superpower China was becoming. Over the decades, China and Australia built a robust trading relationship. China is Australia's largest two-way trading partner. In the year 2023, China accounted for 26% of all goods and services in trade, and this was an increase of 9.3% from 2022. Two-way trade between the nations reached $327 billion. Year after year, China also dwarfs Australia's other trading partners, whether it be in exports, where China accounts for 32.6% of where Australia is sending their goods, or even imports. China still surpasses other countries by a good margin. Australia's exports to China include iron ore, the cornerstone of the Australian economy, coal, which is a staple of its exports, and agricultural products such as barley and dairy. On top of this, many Chinese students and tourists visit the country each year, providing substantial revenue for Australia's economy. On the other side, Australia imports semiconductors, electronics, and various manufactured goods. But there is a bigger problem here. These numbers paint more of a dependency than a partnership. How would Australia cope if China is disappeared from this chart? The economic impact would be devastating. Australia has bound itself too closely to China, making it susceptible to the wants and needs of Beijing. But it's not only this side of Australia's modern foundation that is faltering. If China wasn't enough to handle, President Trump has also added anxiety to Australia's geopolitical landscape. Simply put, Donald Trump is keen on destroying the liberal international order, the very order that provided the security for Australia to prosper since the end of World War II. In Trump's mind, he believes the international system has ripped off Americans by the billions. America pays billions of dollars to protect numerous countries all over the world, and what does it get back? Absolutely nothing. He views America's foreign policy from a purely transactional viewpoint. Whatever can enrich America in the short term is what he's after. Trump and his team believe China is the existential threat the US faces, and thus the Indo-Pacific is where the focus of US foreign policy should be. Trump will likely make demands of Australia to get tougher on China. This is precisely the position Australia is hoping to avoid. If America increases the pressure, in the Trump way of course, and if Australia yields to this pressure, China will begin to retaliate economically. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, China pursued an economic boycott when the Australian government challenged China's handling of the pandemic. 5 years later, under the current geopolitical climate, I would imagine the Chinese response to be much tougher. The consequences would be devastating. As mentioned before, Australia has more of an economic dependency than a relationship with China. So what is Australia to do? Where in the world can it look for allies that won't abandon it so suddenly? Well, it turns out, as Trump in these 2 months has laid siege to the international system, he has a particular disdain for Europe, as does his vice president. Europe has felt betrayed and abandoned by Donald Trump. In this new reality, Europe once slowly, now at a rapid pace, is becoming cognizant of reality. That reality is one which the transatlantic relationship is coming to an end, and Europe may finally have to become an independent power again. For Australia then, this makes Europe a natural ally, and perhaps where its future security lies. The geopolitical situation is changing rapidly. Perhaps the biggest changes since the end of the Cold War are happening right now. International institutions are being abandoned by the US, and for Australia, the world is thus becoming much lonelier. If Australians wish to secure a prosperous future, they must escape what is comfortable, conformity to the world power, and look to new horizons. For in the new world being created, adapting quickly is paramount to one's survival. Will Australia side with the US, or will it seek to deepen ties with Europe? Perhaps it shocks the world and forges a better relationship with China. I want to know what you think about Australia's geopolitical situation. Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.